Very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. It's a public holiday, so happy holidays and happy Workers' Day to everyone. Happy Workers' Day, guys.
Yes, happy Workers' Day to all workers out there, especially Nigerian workers who have shown resilience and productivity in the most extraneous economic circumstances. And welcome to a perfect morning starter. I am Bukola Kilka.
Well, I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Public holiday for you, most likely work for us, most definitely. But it speaks to the vital role that workers play in our economy, wherever you may be, whether you're an essential worker or not. Today is a day to reflect on the value you add to the system, the value the system gives you, because it's actually not a one-way traffic, it's a two-way traffic. It's Workers' Day, and you know, I saw a write-up on Daily Trust that how much work is really being done. And I think today is a very important day for us to also reflect and say, I am going to make those demands, absolutely, but hey, I'm going to ensure that I do my very best. So it's a day of reflection. What is our work ethic like as a nation? As much as we fight for civil servants, as much as we fight for the everyday worker must also say, well, I must fight for my work and ensure I add value. That is my 2 cents today. You're welcome.
I'm sure you've collected your salaries. If you haven't, sorry. Still celebrate. But we'll take a break, and when we come back, we have a lot to discuss today on the program. So we're going to start pretty early. We'll start with the headlines, what the dailies are reporting. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's bring in Mr. Daya Kintobi. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Looking dapper as always. Thank God it's Friday, right? It's a public holiday. I know you don't like that.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's a public holiday, long weekend. So some of us are already looking forward to having a nice, free, easy, long weekend. Yeah. You are the ones that are stuck in the studio. Yeah, I just do 10 minutes and the rest of my weekend is free. We're doing the Lord's
work. Let's get to the dailies. This Nigeria is where we'll get started. We'll start from, is leading, of course. Everybody's flooded with politics. You acted unlawfully. Supreme Court voids PDP Ibadan Convention. Mark back as ADC chair. Factionalization over in PDP says Wike. ADC comes order to return to High Court. So I have had a lot of legal conversation behind the scene, but I'm actually, the reason I'm preserving my comment or reserving is because I need to see the CTC and see the reasoning of their Lord Justices of the Supreme Court. But however, it's a split decision, 3-2. The other one stood on the fact that justiciable issues, although they condemned the contempt of court, perhaps the majority of judges stood on the fact that contempt of court should never be accommodated, nullifying that convention. And then for the PDP, you saw the ADC rather, it's an interlocutory appeal. If you follow the law, you already know this is going to end, but pushing the decision of the appeal court to say, you have already dismissed the case, why are you giving those kind of consequential orders? What do you make of this, and what's the future of this politics?
Well, the decision seems to at least have calmed a bit of tension in the polity, at least.
It doesn't actually.
well, no, truth be told is at least we have some sense of direction today, which we didn't have yesterday.
For the ADC.
Yes, for the ADC. Even with the PDP, at the end of the day, what was said that one particular faction that came out of the Ibadan Convention, by nullifying the Ibadan Convention completely, it brought clarity to the fact that those who are appointed from the Ibadan Convention don't hold office anymore. Yeah. They are null and void. So that has removed one aspect of the conflict or the ambiguity. So that reduces the issues within the PDP as far as I can see, in my opinion. That doesn't mean they are to Huru yet, because in actual fact,
I heard there was a cross appeal that had to do with the status of, what's his name, Samuel Anyanwu. That was suspended, and then they...
The court upheld that.
Yes.
They upheld the suspension of Anyanwu.
That is the new trouble.
By the Jugundu faction.
No, they didn't dispute it per se. That's why we need to see the CTC. Courts made a decision upholding that because it was suspended in November, I think so, and then they constituted a caretaker.
Right.
So whatever is the proceed of somebody who was suspended in constituting the group that eventually led to the leadership is what is being debated today. That's why the other group is saying is leaderless, but they are saying it's academic.
Yes, well, the BOT says they can't have a vacuum and that they will step in.
They have stepped in.
And they will begin to run the affairs of the party. FCT Minister Wike says, well, there's no longer factions. PDP is one. So it's interesting to see where they go from here, because at the end of the day, most important thing is to have competition. We want opposition. We want vibrant opposition parties. So if the PDP can get its act together, they said, well, then welcome all members back who left because of uncertainty, but that those who worked against the party will not be welcomed back. Most important.
We know who those are.
Maybe even some of the people who are commenting vociferously are some of those who worked against the party and should not be let back. But the point is, at least the PDP has some sense of direction now. Hopefully they can put their house in order, get all their aggrieved members back together. They're saying they're still the major opposition, which I think ADC has supplanted them. And the Supreme Court gave ADC a new lease on life yesterday, even though they're not at Uhuru yet either, because essentially what happened was the matter was returned to the Federal High Court for continuation of trial. So there's still an unresolved issue that the courts will still look at in the ADC that could still upset the apple cart, quote unquote. But at least now they've been energized to move forward. They have a platform, they have a legal platform on which to proceed in terms of with their primaries and everything else, in the hope that they will ultimately prevail in court. For me, the most important thing that came out of the Supreme Court yesterday is the fact that opposition can breathe again. This issue of moving towards a one-party state has been minimized. If there was an overt move to create a one-party state, at least now we know that we have some semblance of an opposition. I think the Supreme Court played it safe. It was kind of like a 1-1 draw. They gave one and they kept one, the way I look at it. And I think it's a reflection of the fact that the Supreme Court justices also pay attention to what's going on in the polity. They're not immune. You look in the mirror and you see us among them. They were drawn from us. They're living, breathing, feeling Nigerians just like we are. And I sense that they already see the upsurge in terms of the ADC and the opposition. They know the tension that's in the polity. And I don't think there could have been any legal justification they could have found not to rule the way they ruled, because I think they knew it would have been rather chaotic and disruptive. So there might have been some element, you can always find a law to use for justification of just about any conflict.
Right.
So I think they played it safe to some extent.
We'll see how things play out. You see the PDP's Sheyi Makinde wing in that sense. They also held their meeting. The chairman of BOT, Adolphus Wabra, says we have taken over. And we know that they have a relationship. We have the Wike group also celebrating and say, well, this is a win. So clearly, if everybody's celebrating a win, it means there's probably no win.
There's no win
just yet. But the Vanguard newspaper, Mr. Kintobi, is leading with the same story.
Yes.
And so as we celebrate Workers' Day, it shows the work that politicians have been doing as well. They are part of the real workers in Nigeria today. Supreme Court OK's ADC's Mark Axis PDP's Turaki, but there's also the other side to the story for both of them. ADC has to go back to start that case again. For the PDP, it's like 1-1 draw. We'll delve into all of that on the program today because it's a major conversation. But we must talk about Workers' Day, right, Mr. Kintobi? And so workers mark May Day in pains as labor decries insecurity, poverty, inflation. It's on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper.
That's a trifecta of misery. Yes, absolutely. When you consider insecurity, poverty, and everything else that ails Nigerians. The Nigerian worker is symbolic of the ordinary Nigerian in the street who is just trying to eke out a living, fend for his family. And, when you talk to the ordinary Nigerian in the street, we're not asking for too much, When you consider that people on average just want a roof over their heads, a couple of square meals a day, ability to pay their rent, pay their children's school fees, have some relatively decent clothing, have security in their homes, that you can sleep with both eyes closed at night. I mean, it'd be nice to have electricity and water as well, and roads that don't have potholes. But the key thing is the money in our pocket. We want it to be able to pay for an average quality of life. We're not asking for luxuries. We're not asking for the lavishness of our politicians. We're asking for just an average, moderate quality of life. And we're not getting it. That is why this May Day in particular is so significant. And if you look at the statements coming out of the NLC and the TUC in the last couple of days, it's lamenting the plight of workers. And no matter how we look at it, in spite of Iran and America war, that I read yesterday that petrol's up to 1,400 per litre. And I'm imagining what chaos that is doing to transport fares and food inflation and all that. But if you put aside even the Iran, Israel, America problem, you put aside Ukraine and Russia and all of the global shocks that have occurred in the last 3 years. You have to go back to May 29, 2023, and those two policy adjustments and the impact we are still feeling till today. And most people ask and say, but what's happening to the savings from subsidy? That the subsidy that was removed, the palliative the government promised was the fact that there'd be more money in both the national and the subnationals, and that money will be spent on making life better for people. But it's not happening. And you ask yourself, I've asked myself so many times, where did the money go? Where did the money go? And I listened to an analyst the other day, and he said, perhaps what the federal government didn't realize when they removed subsidy abruptly was that the devaluation of the Naira, when they unified the foreign exchange rates, would also affect government spending. That everything they save from subsidy has actually gone into increased government spending, because for the same thing that they're buying today, they're paying more than they were paying before the policy adjustment.
They're paying more Naira.
So they're paying more Naira. So it's not as if they have all the subsidy savings to be able to lavish on all of the citizenry. So the issue is, yes, subsidy removal was probably necessary. But now, in retrospect, it looks like the key reason that was adduced for eliminating subsidy was the fraud behind it. And you ask yourself that if there were 1,000 people defrauding the system, should 220 million people continue to suffer for the sins of those 1,000? Couldn't those 1,000 people have been hunted down, brought to book, prosecuted and punished, and made to cease and desist from stealing from the ordinary Nigerian people, to where that in itself would have cushioned the effect, because subsidy might not have been had to be removed, and if it had to be removed, perhaps it could have been done in a more humane, gentler way that wouldn't be having this impact 3.5 years later. This is the root of the poverty of today, and probably is also exacerbating the insecurity issue. So happy Workers' Day, but I'm not sure that Nigerian workers are that happy today. I'm not sure.
What a way to end that.
Absolutely. And if you went down memory lane, there had been some interventions by the federal government. Recall the 5 billion Naira that was approved for governors as palliative spending after the removal of fuel subsidy. There was another 500 billion Naira that captured sorted spending, money allocated to labor. There was another 107 billion Naira allocated to environment intervention. But the question is, how far, how well have the subnationals, allocated those resources? Don't forget, increased federal allocation to the subnationals. So sometimes we concentrate on the federal government, but what about the subnationals?
Yes.
Let's go to, the Guardian newspaper this morning, which also captures some other gaps, that governance is showing, and the people seem to be at the receiving end for. But of course, the front page leads with the big story from yesterday: clarity uncertainty as Supreme Court reshapes opposition ahead of 2027. It's a page 6 read. But if you looked right under the big picture, you would see Labour speaking to the current economic crisis, and the picture of the Labour leader is there, president of the NLC. Worsening cost of living crisis overshadows May Day despite wage increase. And there's also this one right beside the big picture on the right-hand side, perhaps on your on your left from where you're watching. SANU, NASU embark on indefinite strike today. Mr. Kitobi, those two issues. On May Day.
We're back at it again. This, I think, is non-academic staff union of universities. They say the allowances they were promised were not paid. And at a time, as that report says, at a time when the money in your pocket is buying less, this is not a time when you don't need your allowances not paid, because even when your allowances are paid, it's not enough to cover what you need to do. So you need every extra you can lay your hands on, not less. You need more. So of course, people are aggrieved because the government has promised. They had these agreements in the past. Government always seems to renege, especially agreements with NLC, the labor movement, agreement with the university, ASU, yes, the university, until a strike shuts down everything before government now tries to be reactive. But it shouldn't always have to get down to a strike issue. Like now they're downing tools. It'll affect who? At the end of the day, it's not going to affect the politicians. And at the end of the day, it won't really even affect the non-academic staff, because as part of their demands, they would demand that they get paid for even the period when they were on strike. So they'll come out smelling like roses. They probably end up getting part of their demands. But who ends up being the one to suffer? It's the students. It's, the university communities and the extensions who benefit from, all of the ancillary services. So you look at it and you say, I've always felt like, even though strike is a legitimate tool and it's a constitutional right, I've always felt like at the end of the day, a strike is so disruptive, and we do end up at the negotiating table to resolve it eventually. So why couldn't we have found the willpower to resolve it at that same negotiating table before we had to down tools? It seems as if everybody's calling everybody's bluff. The government feels like, okay, well, we've made an offer, accept it or leave it, and then the unions will also now say, well, you haven't met us where we need to go, and we're going to down tools, and eventually everybody stays hard to their positions, which leads to this impasse, which now affects the innocent. And that's the heartbreaking part of it, is that it's the innocents that suffer when things like this happen.
Totally out of time, Mr. Kintobi. Always a great one to have you on the show. But today we're packed, so we want to exhaust all the issues as quickly as possible. But
absolutely.
Thank God it's Friday, so you have a long time to stay with your family.
Absolutely. Happy Workers' Day to all Nigeria, and let's have a nice, long, peaceful weekend.
Absolutely. Dayo Kintobi is a public affairs analyst joining us right here in our Lagos studios. We'll take a break, and when we'll come back after this break, we'll get to the first conversation that has to do with the PDP. Stay with us.
All right. Yes, absolutely. Come and let's have that conversation. It's about the People's Democratic Party. The Supreme Court has made a ruling, and it is time for us to get a sense of how the different parties within the same party are taking this. We're joined on the program by a member of PDP Ministers Forum, Mr. Humphrey Abba, former minister as well, joins us live from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Mr. Abba, and welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Well, we're watching and seeing if the PDP would move on from this point or still try to resolve all of the issues. On the one hand, the Supreme Court made a pronouncement saying, well, that Ibadan Convention should not have happened. It was contempt of court. It shouldn't have gone to a court of equal jurisdiction to try to get a ruling when that case was already in court. You shouldn't have done that. But we've seen, Minister Wike releasing a statement saying, well, no more factions. We've also seen the Seyi Makinde wing in the APC and the PDP, forgive me, having their meeting. We've seen the chairman of BOT, Adolphus Wabara, saying we're now taking over. So with that court's pronouncement, it looks like there's still very much present faction within the PDP?
Well, thank you very much. I don't think we have agreed as to the issues of factions. The Supreme Court ruling yesterday was very clear. Like you said, it annulled the Ibadan Convention, and there was also another arm of the judgment that people are not referring to, and that is the arm that also upheld the Court of Appeal decision that recognized the suspension of the 4 officers that dovetailed into the end of their tenure. So whatever those 4 officers had done thereafter remains a nullity. They cross-appealed on it. They cross-appealed on it, and the Supreme Court, they lost on the cross-appeal in the Supreme Court. And that is substantial. It's substantial, very substantial. So as it is, the PDP has a constitution, and the elders of the party, principally beginning with the Board of Trustees, have decided to step in and to do the needful as outlined in our constitution. So the context and the crisis that has been in PDP has actually been about the National Working Committee. People do not realize that we have other executive organs. For instance, we have the National Caucus, we do have the National Executive, we do have the Board of Trustees, and then you now talk about the National Working Committee, that is an integral part of the National Executive Council. So I know, as a matter of fact, that following from yesterday's decision of the Supreme Court, NEC members are in the process of setting up a meeting, and that will be done as soon as possible.
So who is in charge of the PDP as of today?
Of course, there is a Board of Trustee chairman who can call all parties to order. And he issued a press statement at the close of the decision of the Supreme Court yesterday evening. So the Board of Trustee chairman is Senator Adolphus Nwabara, and effectively he's on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Right.
He's playing the role of this man that
but pardon me, the FCT minister reaffirmed that the convention of the Abdurrahman-led group remains valid. So he's not relying on the appeal that affirmed the suspension of Mr. Yawu and the rest. He's saying that, well, the Abdurrahman-led group remains the leader, or at least leadership for the PDP.
Well, you know, people are entitled to their views. But as far as the decisions of the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court on these matters are concerned, that would be a preposterous position to take, with due respect. So I think people, all of us who are members of the party, should be properly guided by the decisions of court. You cannot put something on nothing. You cannot build on emptiness. The 4 members of the former National Working Committee who were on suspension as at the time they allegedly tried to put together a caretaker committee and consequently went ahead to organize a supposed convention, clearly are in breach. They are clearly in breach, except they are claiming they don't want to obey the rules of the decisions of court. They are the ones that went to court, and they must, having submitted to the courts, we are all bound to obey the final decisions of the same court.
So let's talk about timing. Timing is critical. I'm going to stay with the issue of this division because these days sometimes, even for the courts, the final court in the land, which is the apex or the Supreme Court, we still have multiple interpretation of things that come from the court. So there is one that is not ambiguous, which is the fact that the Turaki-led in the PDP is not existing in the law because it's been nullified by the Supreme Court. So there is no debate about that. The debate is on this part of the suspension. So since you're a lawyer, walk us through timing, and help me out if I'm wrong with my timing. I understand that early November, perhaps 1st of November, Anyanwu and the rest members that were suspended for 30 days. So is it within those 30 days that they were suspended that they formed themselves in part of the NEC to inaugurate Abdurrahman as the leadership? So if that is true, by whatever verification has to be done to verify that, does that invalidate consequential action because they were part of the process? So what I mean by that is, if they now set up that caretaker committee or whatever they did, were there correspondences from Sam Anyanwu whilst he was the suspended national secretary of the party within those 30 days? Those correspondences, are they available? That's on one hand. On two, they are even saying that, let's even accept without conceding that, yes, that happened in court. Now it's academic because 30 days elapsed. So I want you to speak to the question of timing and consequential action based on the suspension.
Oh, okay, thank you. Now, the issue of the suspension was raised in the appellate court by leave of court. The matter was raised in the appellate court by the lead counsel to the Turaki-led group. And the appellate court rightly came up with a final decision stating that the then legal advisor who was putting himself forward to represent the party and to exercise the functions of the national legal advisor on behalf of the party was functus officio because he had been suspended from the party, and that suspension dovetailed to the end of tenure. Note that this suspension dovetailed to the end of tenure for the last National Working Committee. I also need to bring to your attention the fact that this gentleman, especially the National Secretary, was also asked to appear before the disciplinary committee for a final position to be taken on this issue. And that led him to go to the Federal FCT High Court. He went to the FCT High Court to try to challenge that exercise of power by the disciplinary committee of the party. And FCT High Court in January this year gave a judgment on the issue, also affirming that his suspension was legitimate and that he no longer remained an officer of the party. By the time the disciplinary committee took their final decisions, the FCT High Court confirmed the actions of the decisions of the disciplinary committee of the party. So the four of them who were actually suspended were within the time frame of their tenure lapsing. And whatever they did during that period has no effect because at that point in time, they were no longer officers of the party. And I need to also bring to your attention that the National Working Committee is made up of about 13 to 17 people. And it will be absurd for you to say that 4 people will take a decision on behalf of the rest of them. Albeit these 4 are people that have been suspended from their offices. So the Court of Appeal rightly assumed jurisdiction to listen to the matter, and they made a serious or in their judgment, they made serious observations on the conduct of counsel.
Sir, just a moment, as we to wind. If I may butt in, so the argument about being an academic exercise in law, where does that stand?
No, it's not an academic exercise because it's a factual thing. Because it is following from that fact that they are assuming the rights of action to function in an office. So if you say it's academic, then you are right. You are also trying to write off all the things they have done, and that's our position. Is that these are factual matters. These are people who no longer have the right to represent the party. So whatever they did thereafter was null and void. So it's not academic. It's a fact. So anybody who thinks that they still exist to act or function, and as such, whatever they did consequent to their suspension was valid, must be acting in error. Must be acting in error. So I think that the proper course of action for people to take is to respect the decisions of the two courts, the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, and get back to listening to the other organs of the party, i.e., the Board of Trustees, the NEC, National Executive Committee of the party, and then the National Caucus. These three organs of the party are there, and I think they are currently meeting to try to reposition the party and get it to move forward. Because of those who want to contest election. Because of those who are prepared to represent elections. Yes, please.
The Wike Group, through its National Publicity Secretary yesterday, did insist that the suspension was an academic exercise, and that in fact the National Publicity Secretary of the Makinde Group was flustered and had to be called to order by the Lord Justices yesterday in court, and that he came out misinterpreting what the Supreme Court ruled on the suspension of the Iron and others. But perhaps you want to respond to that. But still on the matter of timing, now that you say that Senator Adolphus Wabara, leading the BOT, has taken over the affairs of the party, what is the strategy of the Makinde Group, especially within the context of timing, on how to resolve the party issues ahead of May the 31st, which would be the deadline for the presidential primaries?
Number one, anybody who is contending that what the Supreme Court did was an academic exercise is speaking out of, with due respect, I would say, out of ignorance. The Supreme Court cannot be engaged in matters that are as serious as this, that go to the root of democratic establishments of our nation. And you say they are doing academic exercise. These are respected jurists who have spent their time to go through files and read through judgments and come out with decisions that will guide us. And then somebody sits in his corner and calls it an academic exercise. That's an insult. Secondly, you talk about the publicity secretary being flustered in the Supreme Court. No, maybe he does not understand the conduct of counseling in court. If he was a lawyer and he said that, then I would have been very annoyed. But I will excuse him because maybe he doesn't know the practice and procedure in court. What the Lord Justices were correcting the publicity secretary for was that because of the congestion in court, where he was seated when the case was called and cancelled and started announcing appearances, there was no microphone by his place. I was in court. So he had to move to the table where there was a microphone, and other lawyers were seated there. So he decided to put on the microphone from outside the bar. So the Lord Justices corrected him that, look, you cannot speak from outside the bar. You need to properly sit in the bar. So he had to move in and sit at the bar to announce his appearance and all the other lawyers that went with him. So I do not see how that became an issue for somebody who claims to be a publicity secretary. He needs to have some understanding of how the court functions. Now, on the issue of timing, yes, time is of the essence in this matter, particularly because of the timetable of the INEC and the Electoral Act 2026. The elders of the party are conscious of the issue of time, and they are working assiduously to ensure that we get across to INEC and get across to all party members so that we can be within time. That is why we are not dragging our foot. As I talk with you, people are meeting today, people are meeting tomorrow on the same issue, so as to expedite action in the implementation as a fallout of the decision of the Supreme Court. So anybody who decides to ignore the decisions of the Supreme Court on this matter does so at his own peril.
Well, Mr. Humphrey, we have to thank you for your time. It's been, well, interesting listening to your own side of this, and definitely this is an ongoing conversation. So Humphrey Abba is a member of PDP Ministers Forum, also a former minister. You know, maybe someday, very soon, we'll have a conversation with you on security, the police, interior, and the rest, which is a core area that you oversaw when you were minister. But we have to thank you in the meantime. So Humphrey Abba, wish you the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And happy May Day to our workers who are going through very challenging times.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, there's more for you. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. And of course, it's May Day, Workers' Day, where we celebrate the resilience, the productivity of workers, the value that workers bring to the table, their conditions of service, their requirements in order to help them continue to be productive, and of course to continue to be able to live and enjoy a living wage, which is more critical than any other thing. So are those elements there that ensure that their welfare is if not top-notch, but at least above average? Are those conditions there, both in the public service and in the private sector? Those subtopics under workers' welfare are very, very critical, and they come through on Workers' Day as we review those conditions of service and find out from labor what the level of their commitment to those subtopics as far as Workers' Day is concerned. Let's have this conversation now, and joining us from our Abuja studio is the president of the Trade Union Congress, Mr. Festus Osifo. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the morning brief.
Good morning, Bukola. Good morning, Kayode and Jeffrey. Yeah, good morning to you all, and I wish you all happy International Workers' Day.
And I assume that this will be the colors of the Workers' Day celebration that we'll be seeing from Abuja today, the one you're dressed in.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this is the attire for this year, 2026.
Indeed, beautiful, but we hope that workers' welfare is just as colorful as what you're dressed in. Let's begin the conversation. So, on Workers' Day celebration 2026, the university staff unions are on strike. The last I checked, in March last month, the Academic Staff Union of Universities was giving the federal government an ultimatum on the need to implement the new salary scale that had been agreed upon, brokered by the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa. Add to this the current economic crunch that is especially now made more difficult by the fact that Nigerian workers are purchasing, across all strata now, petrol for 1,320 naira per litre, more than 500% increase from the prior to the war in Iran. And some would say perhaps the voice of labor that is supposed to be in the defense of workers' rights has become hollow in the past couple of months. What is the level of the commitment of labor to these issues?
First, I wish to, on behalf of the leadership, the National Executive Council of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, I wish to felicitate with the entire Nigerian workers for yet again another Workers' Day. Thank God Almighty for seeing us through another 1 year. And today is a day that we are yet again to celebrate the Nigerian workers and to say thank you for the labor that you've put into the productivity and making Nigeria economy a going concern. Yes, the day, it actually comes in twofold. One fold is for us to tell ourselves thank you, even if nobody tells us thank you, because we know that Nigerian workers are actually the people that are behind those numbers that you hear. Month in, month out, you hear from the Nigeria National Bureau of Statistics, you hear the GDP figures, how the economy is growing. If not for the labor, if not for the strength, if not for the resilience of Nigerian workers, I could tell you that those GDP will not be moving in the direction that they are moving today. So that is on one hand. Then on the other hand, we also use today to reflect on the challenges that Nigerian workers are passing through, on the issues that are, the economic issues, and also issues of insecurity that has exacerbated in our land over the last years. So it's an opportunity for us to also examine where are we coming from, where are we today, and where do we want to chart, the course forward tomorrow. So having said that, and coming to your question, Bukola, yes, over time, the trade union movement, we've been extremely consistent on what we think the government must do. The government now, across 3 levels, both the federal, the state, and the local government, what we think they must do to address the plight of the Nigerian workers. As you rightly said, that today, petrol, for example, has moved from about 700 naira to about 1,200 thereabout. That's roughly maybe about 80% increment or thereabout. When these started occurring, for us in TUC, we mounted the rostrum and we were in the vanguard of trying to push and let governments understand the implication of this, not just for the Nigerian workers alone, but for the entire economy. For us, if you remember, I was in your studio over and over again in the last 2-3 years when there was massive devaluation of Naira. We have said that the greatest economic damage that has happened to the Nigeria economy is actually allowing Naira to slide the way they are. Yes, we understand that government said they want to remove subsidy from Naira, the Naira subsidy. That was fine. But when Naira went to about 1,400, 1,700, the most consistent voice that was out there advocating that the Naira does not have business being in 1,700 Naira was TUC. We were extremely consistent. We brought up a 15-page demand. We submitted it to the Secretary of Government of the Federation. We followed up with several meetings to explain to them the implication of this, because we felt that at that point the Naira was undervalued. Because Naira was undervalued, it is going to affect the purchasing power of Nigerian workers. The first conference we had on this was in January 2024. When 2023, 2024, we started advocating on this strongly. And I could tell you that it's actually because of the strong push that we did. That is why we are actually where we are today. Remember, the CBN governor, the current CBN governor at the time, went to an international forum and he said that Naira is undervalued. If you listen to all captains of industry, if you listen to all rating agencies, all economic think tank, both in Nigeria and abroad, they said that the Naira was undervalued. What is the implication of that, Bukola? The implication of that is that when your currency is undervalued, when you allow your currency to be grossly undervalued and you didn't manage it very well, we are not saying you should pay subsidy in it. We are not saying you should overvalue it like it was done in the past. But we believe that the value of Naira should be somewhere around 800 to 900 Naira to $1 today. If that be, because Nigeria is an import-dependent country, if Naira is valued properly, I could tell you that it has a direct impact in bringing down the cost of living today. For example, if Naira was selling at about 900 Naira to $1, the petrol that we buy today, even with the problems in the Middle East, the petrol that we buy today will be selling for less than about 900 Naira per liter. When the problem is over and crude price goes down to about $70, $60 per barrel, petrol will be selling for around $400 to $500, $400 to $500 Naira per liter. So that is the implication.
All right, comrade, if I get you correctly,
the iPhone that you are using or the Samsung phone that you are using is that expensive. It is because of the undervalue. We are undervaluing our Naira. So
okay,
for us,
comrade, if I get you correctly,
we have had meetings on this.
Right.
Okay.
Pardon me. Apologies for butting. I just want to get this clear so we can have something punchy. So you're saying that, yes, the conversation around minimum wage is good because we're hearing that, there's push for minimum wage to increase beyond what it is already. But you're saying, first of all, let us fix the value of the Naira. Because I'm looking at the value, if it's going to be 800, then Nigeria's minimum wage, 70,000, will be worth about $87, unlike the $54 it is worth right now with the current value of the Naira. Are you saying that it's more important to first find a way to bring down the value of the Naira, or at least bring up the value of the Naira, then we can talk about minimum wage later? Is that what you're saying?
I know, it's a double-edged approach, all right? So even as we are fixing the value of the Naira, we could also be having conversation around the minimum wage. So we could go, it's a kind of mutually exclusive. So it's not you do one and you now, they are not independent. You mustn't finish one before progressing to the other. But what we are saying is that if you address both of them at the same time, it has direct effect on the purchasing power of the Naira. Because for us, it is not just about the volume, Kayode. You can come up today and say that the volume, Nigerian minimum wage is, let's say, 1 million Naira. But what is actually the value of that 1 million Naira? What can that 1 million Naira purchase? So if you don't fix the fundamentals and you are just talking about minimum wage alone, it may not necessarily have the right purchasing power that it ought to have. So what we are saying is that fix everything holistically. This can actually be done. Let me quickly say this. CBN, they know this very well. You could see at a time, towards the end of last year to the beginning of 2026, they started, doing a lot of aggressive defense of the Naira. It got to about 1,250 Naira, at the official market, right? But at that point, you see the portfolio investors. You see the leaders of the subnationals, that is the governors, they will start kicking, they will start pushing, and that they will start saying no, that you should not, let the Naira achieve the right value it ought to achieve. The reason they are doing this, for the portfolio investors, it's all about them, because they felt that they brought in dollar at a certain exchange rate. So if you overvalue it and they are now, or if you do the right valuation and they are not taking away their investment, that they are going to lose. That is their concern. Then the concern of the subnational is also that, because, I've listened to a lot of narrative. We always say that the government is making more money because of fuel subsidy removal. No, more money that they are actually making is because of the dollar exchange rate. Because, for example, every month, NUPROC, NNPC, they pay royalties to the federation accounts, all right? You have the petroleum profit tax and all that, paid in dollars into the federation account. So if, for example, you were getting, let's say, $500,000 every month, approximately, when you were changing it at 450, it's going to give you a lesser Naira value compared to when you are not changing it at about 1,400. So they're actually making more Naira. So the governors, they will start kicking. So not that CBN doesn't know that our Naira is undervalued, but because of external pressures, they are trying to manage it one way or the other. So for us, it should be a multi-sectorial approach. One, I mean, we discussed about the minimum wage. We discussed about how the life of an average Nigerian worker will be much more better. But we can't discuss it in isolation. If you do that in isolation and the purchasing power continuously erode, you will be paid 1 million naira and it may be worthless.
All right, Mr. Sifo, you say the fundamentals should be fixed, but the conditions of work, of service of the workers, they're not improving. In fact, they're being exacerbated by global concerns. But we must anchor at this point. And of course, Nigerian workers are hoping that labor will be more vibrant in intervening on their behalf. Thank you so much, sir, for coming through on this conversation. Mr. Festus Sifo is the president of the Trade Union Congress. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bukola. Yeah, we appreciate it.
There's more politics ahead. This time we'll look at the matter concerning the African Democratic Congress, which has now gotten a relief following the ruling by the Supreme Court. Stay with us for details just ahead.
Welcome back. There's a lot to unpack, so we have to be breezy on this one. Let's bring in our guest, the National Publicity Secretary of the ADC, Mr. Bolaji Abdullahi, joins us virtually. Mr. Abdullahi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning. Good morning, Jeff, and other members of the team. Good morning.
Yeah, well, I mean, congratulations. I know that because I can see, as at last night, INEC was very swift. So they've restored the name of David Mark and the rest of the NWC that are supposed to be on that portal. But like a lot of comments have come through that this is not Uhuru yet. Maybe you tell us what this means for the party and what the next line of action is, because you still have to go to the trial court and show cause why that injunction should not be granted, and then we can now start talking about the issue of the originating summons that was filed by Nafiu Gombe.
Well, I mean, thank you very much. Like you said, many people have wondered why they're so excited, why they're celebrating when they still have to go to the High Court. But for us, it's quite significant because if you recall, all these crises, when we were at the High Court or in the courts, no one really knew what was going on about the parties because we were confident that the legal processes will play out. The real cog happened on April 1 when the INEC chairman decided to act on what he called the Court of Appeal order to remove David Marks and derecognize David Marks from relationship with INEC. That's what actually created the logjam. We have maintained from the one that action was illegal and was a criminal act because it was not directed by the Court of Appeal. So the significance of the Supreme Court ruling yesterday was to remove this encumbrance or to remove this foundation on which INEC carried out this illegal act of tampering with the leadership of the ADC. So that's quite significant for us. And we are delighted to see that INEC had decided to course correct and that done so swiftly. So it now means that normalcy is restored at that level. We can now continue to engage with them. We can now begin to prepare for our primaries. We can now begin to move forward. And so the immediate threat that action constituted to our ability to participate in the 2027 election is at least for now removed. So until the Court of Appeal the Federal High Court now rules against us. So for us, it's quite significant, and because we're working under a very tight deadline of the electoral of the guidelines of INEC. So now means that we can engage, so that's quite significant. I mean, you're right. We still have a long way to go, and apart from this instant case that you are referring to, there's another one coming up to which the government has directly involved itself. seeking the deregistration of the African Democratic Congress itself. You know, that's another very ridiculous. So we are aware that the people doing this are not going to stop because the agenda has not changed. Is to ensure that by 2027, President Bola Tinubu is the only viable presidential candidate. That has not changed. We got this victory, we enjoyed it, but we know that the battle continues.
So, in talking about the battle continues, before my colleagues chip in, we know that there's a judgment that came in a day before the Supreme Court judgment that has to do with state congresses. We understand 7 state chairmen had approached the court sided with them about the tenure. And I also know that you made a release to the effect that the new people that were supposed to assume office, they've been told as a then not to assume office till the expiration of that tenure. And we had a conversation with one of those persons who had instituted a suit yesterday. So how does the party intend to manage what this may cause for it? Because is it that the party is going to say at the end of their tenure, I think 13th or so of May, leave office, or the party is going to appeal the judgment? What exactly is the plan?
Well, I mean, the lawyers are handling the legal part of it. On the political part of it, whether they like it or not, their term expires latest May 19th, whether they like it or not. So after that, they can no longer claim to be competent officials of the African Democratic Congress. And there's not going to be a vacuum. So the leadership of the ADC will find a political solution to that. We've already conducted our congresses, but all those issues will be sorted and will now be reviewed in the context of the Federal High Court ruling, which we disagree with. We believe that with due respect, the trial judge was very, very wrong, and we don't want to begin to bandy conspiracy theory here. But we know exactly what has happened, and we are going to see it through. So we are aware that all these things will happen. We don't expect that it's going to be so. Like we said yesterday, what made the Supreme Court ruling of yesterday is quite significant to us. Is that now we are no longer stranded. Now we can participate in the political process, and that's what's exciting most people. And most significantly, 2 things happened yesterday that we may want to overlook. One is that the moment it was pronounced that the status quo antebellum issue should be dismissed, it was the joy across the country was rapturous. It's not just ADC members, because the country was waiting. After the Supreme Court, there's no next level. If it had gone contrary to what happened yesterday, only God knows what would have happened. So we are excited that, now at least we have a chance to save this country from a crisis that was building up. So that was quite significant. And secondly, that the Supreme Court unanimously could take that decision in spite of the pressure that we know they faced. So that's also significant victory for Nigerians, and that for us, that's enough reason to celebrate, regardless of what will happen down the line.
So there are different ways to interpret this, as we see ADC members rejoicing there at the Supreme Court. You forgive me, sometimes you just mix these things up. But a lot of people see it as a booby trap. Malam Abdullahi. So they see this as temporary celebration, some sort of bait. You see this as a temporary win, you get carried away. Because what the Supreme Court inadvertently did was to give legitimacy to at least the process that has begun at the Federal High Court, saying, go back there, follow through with the process, which you say you disagree with, that you don't even think that the Federal High Court should hear it in the first place. But the Supreme Court is saying, no, let them hear it, follow through, and let's see how that comes out. And that is where people see the booby trap, that this is going to then elongate the process, distract you, and eventually when a decision is made, it may be catastrophic for your party. But my question is this: do you still have faith in the judiciary? Because the Supreme Court ruled in your favor, and there's a lot of jubilation. If a court does not rule in your favor, would you take it all in good faith and say, well, some you win, some you lose, and still have faith in that system?
No, we thank you very much, and that's very, very significant question. You said, okay, this instance of the Supreme Court really favored us. We are celebrating, but there are still booby traps, and there are still... Look, when you are fighting a war, you can celebrate a battle. When you win a battle, you celebrate it. But that does not mean that the war is over. We are conscious that the war, this is going to be a long war, but we are ready for it. And we have demonstrated that we are capable of fighting this war. And that's what has led us to this point. This particular battle yesterday, we won that. And we are not going to allow anybody to minimize the significance of what we have achieved. And we want our members to enjoy that victory of that particular battle. But the war is still on. And we are not going to lose focus that it's a marathon. So we are going to keep fighting. Now, on question of whether if a court rules against us, I think we should take it on a case by case. We are going to take it on a case by case basis, and we are going to take every issue on its merit. I just told you that we agreed that the Supreme Court has ruled, and anybody sitting in that court yesterday and listening to the erudite submission of the Lord Justices will agree that they have done a very thorough work. But we don't see that all the time. Sometimes maybe that's why the Supreme Court, in some of the lower courts, one of the things you hear that are just even ridiculous to some of us who are even laymen, and you wonder what is going on here. So, but in the case that, okay, let's go back to the High Court, we are very confident that we'll have a very clear case, because the issue is about leadership. And it is very clear, it is established that anything that has to do with the leadership of a political party is not justiciable. The issue that was taken to Justice Abdul Malik at the Federal High Court last week, the one that's about it's about congresses. It's not about leadership. So we can understand why the court could rule on that, whether it's famous us or not, and we are going to continue to explore other opportunities in regard to that case, to appeal it and to do whatever we needed to do to make sure it does not truncate what we are trying to do within the ambit of the law. But in this particular case, that the Supreme Court has referred us back to the Federal High Court, we are very clear. It is about the leadership of the political party and nothing else. So it is established for over 5 years now that such matters are not justiciable. So for us, we are confident that we are still a country of law. Where we find that we have been treated unfairly in accordance with the law, we are going to explore opportunities to seek redress. And will continue to do so like we have done in this case up to the highest court of the land. That's what citizens do. And that's why those courts are there. That's why the laws are there. So if we call a judge rules against us and we're not happy, we go to the next level. If we're not happy, we go to the next level. Until God says, okay, because after Supreme Court, there's no next level. But we're happy that at the Supreme Court we got judgment yesterday. And that's why we are celebrating. We are not saying that the war is over, and we are not oblivious of what you call booby traps.
All right. We hope that the celebration continues because we want opposition to thrive. But will the party be appealing the High Court ruling that nullified the state congresses conducted by the David Mark group? That's on the one hand. On the other hand, as the Supreme Court ruled on accelerated hearing for the Nafiu Gombe case, and you're returning to the High Court now, what if somewhere down the line there is a ruling favorable to the Gombe group upholding its contention to the David Mark leadership, and by that time your party has gone ahead to conduct presidential primaries, National Assembly primaries, governorship primaries, and you are now faced with another contention that invalidates those primaries that you conduct. How would the party respond?
Yes, you said what will happen if the judgment of the Federal High Court that we've been asked to go back to does not favor us. I mean, when we get to that bridge, we shall cross it. But the point is that any action that we take now, at the time that we take it, that we are legitimate leaders of the party, cannot be validated in retrospect. I mean, even we who are laymen know that. So this is the significance of what has happened yesterday. So if we get to the court of
oh dear,
we get to the Federal High Court,
but Mr.
and the Federal High Court rules against us, then we take it up from there. The Federal High Court cannot be the final court in the land.
Isn't that assuming and a bit naive? Because I'm sure the party didn't expect that the Court of Appeal would order a status quo antebellum ruling, which at that time INEC responded to by refusing to recognize your group and delisting the name of your national chairman and national secretary from its website. So aren't you assuming that nothing from the courts in the future would invalidate any action that you take from now?
Let me tell you, we are aware of this and we are ready. There are a lot of things we cannot be discussing on public television. We know the people we are dealing with and we are ready for them. When we say that we are defending multi-party democracy in this country, let Nigeria arrive at 2027 and let Nigerians decide who they want to vote for. But to leave them in a situation where they have no alternative is what we are fighting against. If we get to 2027, you beat us in the election, good luck to you. It's our country. But that you would deny Nigerians opportunity when they will have no choice but to vote for only you, it will not happen in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This is not some banana republic. And that's what we are fighting. And we know what they are capable of doing, and we are ready for them. And I'm sure they are seeing the handwriting on the wall. If they thought that this would be easy, then by now they should be having a rethink.
Mr. Abdullahi, we understand you have a busy schedule, so we'll let you go. I think for us journalists, we stand with multi-party democracy. We want everybody to thrive, ruling and opposition. We don't want a logjam in this situation. So wish you the best, wish your party the very best. The murky waters are still way ahead, and we see how that plays out in the coming days. Mr. Bolaji Abdullahi is the National Publicity Secretary of the African Democratic Congress. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure always. Thank you.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll go back to issue of governance. And this time, I want to talk to politicians. I want to talk about to the private sector people. Today's Workers' Day. So optimization, versatility, and everything in between work is the next conversation. Stay with us.
Well, let's do Workers' Day, May Day, Labor Day, whatever you want to call it. I think we can all agree that today is a day to celebrate, reflect on, and basically plan for the future of works. And we want to have a different conversation today. And I really hope that this will add value to all of the conversations that will happen across the country, all the march pasts, the usual parades that we see on Labor Day. And we're joined on the program by Samantha Ifezulike, who's the head of operations at Judgement, as well as the former president, Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Dapo Adelegon, joining us virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning. Good morning.
Well, I know you are particularly excited because it's Workers' Day. You operate smack in the middle of, workers, labor, employment, productivity, and the rest. But I think it's always important to, feel the pulse of workers, feel the pulse of Nigeria's labor market today. Yeah. How well are we doing? When you check your pulse, you kind of wonder, what's my BPM and the rest? How are we doing? In terms of unemployment now, underemployment, wages, and the rest?
I will start with unemployment. I know the statistics are here that it's maybe around like 5%, but I would say that there's a deeper line into it. It's what the numbers are saying, but then what's the reality of our market? Unemployment rate is at a high, that we know, the numbers are there, but there's another part to it, which is underemployment. A lot of people are in the mode of hustling. So they will take up any job that they get just to make an end to a miss. Whether I'm, not qualified for the job, and non-qualified meaning that it doesn't mean that you don't have the right skills. It also means that perhaps I have the right skills, but I'm taking up the jobs that are below my own earning just because I need to provide for my family. The economy is not smiling, but we need to feed. And then you come down to the angle of what exactly is the labor market saying? What is making the end to a means? We're seeing a lot of inflow of, I would say, the gig economy rising, but the labor market as it sits right now, the same way our economy is not doing so great. it would also get into the labor market, because right now people are just getting whatever they need to get a means to an end. Unemployment is at a high. We know it's not looking good, but it could get better. Maybe if our economy gets better, it would also improve that, because it's linked to the buying power of people. It's linked to people getting dignified and fulfilling jobs. At the current stats, we're surviving. That's what the labor market is saying. So we're just trying to survive.
We're surviving. And you've said that it's basically a reflection of the economy. So if the economy does well, the workers will do well.
Yes.
I want to ask Mr. Delegon, because I mean, the state of commerce is really what impacts on workers. If commerce is doing great, if industries are doing great, then I imagine that our workers will earn better. But there's also something at the heart of this, which I want to speak to, and it's about work ethic, right? Where is the challenge, really? Is it that Nigerians are not enterprising enough? Is it that Nigerians are not hardworking enough? And again, I don't want to assume, because you can say Nigerians are hardworking, but you operate right in that sector. So where exactly is the disconnect? Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Delegon.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I'd like to just step back a little and say that the condition of workers is a reflection of the structure of society in terms of social welfare. Every economy has challenges. The American, the British, the French, it's ups and downs. And nobody predicted the war in Iran, between Iran and America and Israel, for example. So shocks come from time to time. That is life. However, Nigeria needs to have a discussion, a critical discussion between the private sector and the public sector about the kind of society in which we want to have. And it must then be one that provides, the basics, structures in affordable transportation, affordable healthcare, affordable housing, and affordable education for the generality of the Nigerian people. So I think irrespective of any shock, either wars or economic dislocation, COVID, society already has a structure in place that provides the basic for its people. I think the absence of the structured social welfare system in Nigeria will continue to affect our situation when we have unexpected shocks in global economy that also affect the country. I think we are mature enough to begin to have that discussion between, and bringing up this discussion, the labor unions themselves can convocate this series of discussions with and bring in the private sector and the public sector to begin to look at a Marshall Plan for Nigerian workers. It is not enough to continue to increase salaries because inflation will erode it, but having a structured system where the Nigerian worker can have living wage, public housing, comfortable, affordable transportation, to be able to survive and live a meaningful life, irrespective of economic nuances that comes up from time to time.
Let's talk about how this is created, because it's institutions that produce the people that eventually work at the different, whether in the private sector, in the public sector, whether people want to go into business or people who want to get a job in the corporate space, the 9-to-5s. When you look at the curriculum of Nigeria, given what we're dealing with, are you thinking what some persons are alluding to the fact that we may have to review our curriculum such that certain courses should no longer be studied in Nigerian universities, so that we don't just give people false hope and put them into a quagmire? They come out, they can't really practice anything much. Do you subscribe to that as well?
Well, I think that is an important subset. Of the larger question Yes, because of the emergence of technology, we need to retool, reskill our educational system, provide proper training for teachers and motivate them. The teachers are also part of the working class. So if we have a global picture of social welfare system anchored on compassion for every policy that is made, policy exertions and formulation, if compassion is at the basis of it, it means that the basics of life, house, education, health, transportation, a global program that is set for the Nigerian working class. Now, the subject of what kind of courses that we need to do is important. It's the minor subset of the general issue. Every single area of courses, humanities, science, STEM, technology, are important to the national existence. In reality, yes, we need to do more investment in technology schools, technical education colleges, to bring skills into the fore in a century where there are no jobs, but only customers. The advent of technology has made it imperative that we need to skill up our institutions and put more funding in technical vocational education. However, the discussion should be going forward, a discussion about a social welfare system for this country. Nigeria is mature enough to have a universal health system, but people should be able to have mass and affordable housing for people and cheap and affordable transportation. That is the discussion that we must begin to have to be able to solve the problem of consistent workers' discontent and all kinds of issues about welfare of the Nigerian worker.
Let me bring it to Samantha. Let me talk to you on that. I went to curriculum. Now, I want to talk about the labor market itself, which you mentioned. There could be the fact that there are places that are in need of workers, that we don't have critical mass. And then there are sectors that there's really no work, but everybody is flocking in that direction. Is that something you can help us walk and say, okay, this from your experience, from what you know, this industry is super saturated, there's limited space, but this place is looking for people. So why are people saying there are no jobs?
Okay, so I think that I wouldn't say it's one sector, right? I would say that our education system needs to be proactive, in the sense that the crop of people that have come out from educational systems are not able to fit directly into the workforce. So it might not be one sector, it might be a generational.
Why can't they fix?
There's a skill gap issue. In schools, the courses that are still in schools are the courses that were, I wouldn't say the oil boom era, but I would still say the oil boom era. Meaning that jobs have changed. Right. Gone are the days whereby you did not have something called digital marketing or social media. But people really need those skills right now because we're in a global society. Meaning that if you're unable to translate your old marketing techniques into the new generation, there's a problem. And companies need ready-to-go talent. Meaning that the schools need to also look at their curriculum and say, what is the market, what is the labor market requesting for? How can I tweak my curriculum? You see a lot of people leave schools and take short courses, not because they probably did not get a good degree, because they cannot translate the degree that they got in school into the workforce.
You want to mention those courses? Shake the table.
They're soft skills. There's something called personal effectiveness. As little as it seems, right? You get an entry-level person, comes into the office. The person is as clueless. Your boss assigns maybe like 5 tasks to you. You're not sure which one is the first thing you should go for, which one is the second thing you could go for. But your courses that tell you what is the urgent, what is important. How do you communicate in the workplace? How do you actually have social communication with people? Because that's how you used to thrive in the workplace. But our education system is quite theory focused. It's not solving what the real time problem is. And then again, there's a need for, I would say, curriculum revision across board. So technology is changing very fast. You can't use a curriculum of 1960 or 1970 or even the early 2000 for 2025 or 2026 because there's always frequent updates. And you're seeing a lot of companies spend monies to actually train those people that have maybe passed through their assessment for maybe like 2 to 3 months before they get on the job. Companies are the ones who are doing the education for people. So you see a lot of banks, oil and gas industries hiring for graduate training, and that training period will probably be like 2 to 3 months because they need to hire you fresh off school and then begin to educate you to fit what their clients require. So until we get the schools to bridge that gap and say that if I'm going to get someone from maybe a public school or a private school, they have that ready skills already available. We also, as a brand, we do trainings with private sector, public sectors, just to try and bridge that gap, because that's our commitment to the society. But I wish that we would have a system whereby our education, the crops that we get from schools, would be ready fit to the labor market.
I was hoping that you would mention those courses. Are they, is it sociology, philosophy, English education, religious studies?
No.
You know, such that, the education system, the managers would then know whether to make those courses sub-courses, such that, our young persons can take up courses that the town needs. And perhaps they can take those other courses as, supporting courses.
So I would say that there's digital marketing skills, right? There's data analysis, right? Most times you see people that do industrial mathematics come into data, right? I would say at some point in time in my previous life, I like to call my ex-workplace previous life, I had cases whereby people will come out of school, and these are like top schools in Nigeria, either from engineering background into accounting. But they were good at it. So sometimes you also need to either invest in career counseling for these people. Again, our parents also have a part to play. Everybody had, back in the days, in the oil boom era, we either wanted to become doctors, lawyers, engineers, and nurses and whatnot. But right now, if you tell someone that I am a digital marketing making $1 million or making so much money, your parents probably cannot relate to you because they've kind of told you to go this path. But those skills are becoming, I wouldn't say obsolete, but they're not in high demand. You see people doing content creation. Now let's not get into the gig economy. Content creation actually earning a very good means to an end. But people, they also need to employ maybe content creators, so maybe help them with their businesses, YouTubers, editors, videographers, producers and directors, because we live in the era whereby media and social media is what is, I wouldn't say is in vogue, it's what's making our society better.
The new economy.
The new economy, the creative economy. It's something we don't even look at. So imagine if you had people, if you had a very good school that could do music production, skills that they pay $1 million for. There's a reason why our giants are flying high. So imagine if you had a lot of giants that are not untapped yet, that the schools have been not able to bring out. What would our economy be like?
And that's quite instructive. Let's talk about another part, which you touched on earlier, and see whether it has to do with retooling, such that those who fall within that category can receive counseling on, better direction. And this has to do with underemployment. Every now and then you find, some persons with a master's degree who is taking up a job as a driver, someone who studied geography and regional planning, who is, in another sector, perhaps in the education sector, alien to where they would have rather practiced. From the vantage point where you stand as someone who processes, applications, what exactly is the problem? Are they not looking in the right places for the jobs, or they need some retooling to make them better positioned?
So, I would say that Nigerians like to collect certificates, but then are the certificates very essential to you? Our upbringing is one that would require you to get this and get this and get that. But then again, if you decide to pause and say, where am I going to? What certificates do I need to acquire to get to where I need to get to? Then it gets clearer, right? Because the master's degrees are there. That's why I also linked our current labor market to what the economy is doing. If we had a very, elaborate economy, job creation was so, we had a vast, serious percentage of job creation, it would be better. But in a situation whereby our labor market it's been I would not say overtaken by the gig economy and informal work, but that's what it is. You're seeing more car hailing like drivers, and it actually amounts to a high percentage of our employers in the labor market as we sit right now. You have the logistics and the rest of it. So I would say that if anybody needs to be proactive, think about where you're going to as a person and begin to get certifications towards that direction. But again, as a recruiter and as an HR person, stand out. Because for employers, they just need to get people that will stand out and provide value to their employees.
You know, I'm tempted to ask you, where is one sector that you know if someone applies now, you're most likely to get a job because you have the data, right?
Yeah.
So what is that sector? Before we go to Mr. Delegon quickly.
So within Q4 last year and early this year, I'm seeing the rise of entry-level roles across tier 1 banks, oil and gas, and other services, FMCG too. Maybe because the economy is picking up again, but you will see a lot of them there. So my advice to everyone is check, there are jobs out there, but are you fit for the jobs? FMCGs are hiring. You're seeing a lot of oil and gas hiring. You're seeing a lot of
tier 1 banks.
Tier 1 banks hiring also. And beyond that too, there's a gig economy. You can also get your skills and export your talents to other people.
Gig economy.
Yeah.
I've heard that so much. But Mr. Delegon, let's wind down with you. And it's back to the question I asked earlier about work ethic. There's a sense that you work to get paid, when for others you work to add value, you work to fulfill purpose. So you could see, and I'm not trying to diminish anyone, a Japanese who's making just a very simple meal, and the kind of dedication he has to, he puts in it. You almost think that this man is building the biggest thing ever. So, which is why I go back to work ethic. Do you think that can also help us shape the outcomes that we get from our workforce if we see work as a purpose, if we see work as something that is adding up to the big picture?
Well, you're right to a large extent. And I believe that Nigerians generally are hard workers. What has happened to them is the dysfunction in the educational system, and that is to be fixed. However, there's another bigger picture. In the 21st century, a portfolio life is like going to give you a sense of worth and a living wage rather than just jobs. It means that beyond the jobs that we have, none of us, many of us cannot survive on our current salaries. It is just impossible. So we are encouraged to develop what they call a portfolio life. That means look at your natural and pedigree talents. Natural talents will be the gifts that God has given to you. Pedigree will be those things you learned, perhaps from your parents as a child. And then move away from your core competence, which is your salary job, and activate this natural and pedigree talents for additional income. I think it's important for Nigerians to recognize that the days of men going to work 9 to 5 and coming back home and living on just their core competence income is over. We need to do extra jobs beyond our 9 to 5 jobs. All over the world, our brothers and sisters in the diaspora that remit billions of dollars have multiple jobs. They have a core job, which is the core area of competence, and they have other things to do. So, as that the system has changed, society has changed. We're out of the boom era. We are in the global economy.
So, Mr. Delegon, are you saying the average Nigerian worker can work harder?
Oh, yes. We can work harder. We can create other sources of income beyond our core salary.
Okay.
No employer, and I've been an employer for 40 years.
Right.
No employer can pay a living wage salary in a difficult economy. So everybody has a responsibility to leverage on their natural and pedigree talent in creating additional income.
All right.
To ensure that they're able to survive the challenges of the 21st century.
Well, so we still have a lot of work to do, but I'm very, very happy that you brought in this angle. Maybe when we switch to the hourly rate, then employers will begin to see how much they are paying their employees hourly, and employees will begin to say, well, I'm just going to work for 4 hours here today. Let me move to this place and work for another 5 hours and aggregate. Mr. Dakwa Delegon, thank you for this angle you've brought in. Former President, Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce, as well as Samantha Efezulike, Head of Operations at Judgement. Thank you for the pointers, by the way. You can thank us later. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it will take a moment now, and when we return, we'll go to the softer side of things. What is that? Find out in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back, and so I'm excited about this segment because we're delving into the arts and the creative economy. And it's an important conversation, especially after months of the renaming of our iconic National Arts Theatre to becoming the Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and Creative Arts. So what's happening with the old National Theatre and the new Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and Creative Arts? Let's find out from who should know. And we have with us right here in our Lagos studio the Director General of the Wole Soyinka Center for Creative Arts, not the National Theatre, right?
It is the National Theatre.
Tola Akirili. Oh, okay. So let's have the clarification. It is the National Theatre.
Yeah, so my role is the National Theatre. The building was renamed the Wole Soyinka Center, but my role is across the whole country.
Across the country?
Yeah, but the building is the Wole Soyinka Center.
Okay.
Yes.
So since the renaming of the building, what's the agenda of the new outlook, especially to enhance the visibility of that cultural icon?
Well, obviously we now know it's a public-private partnership. It's been renovated to a really high standard with the help of the Bankers Committee. And so it's opened. We opened in December, so we're taking on a number of events that are coming up. And of course, my role is around the programming of, events coming up. And we have some really exciting things happening this month, next month. Obviously this month is, a lot of family events, Children's Day. So we have some musical shows coming up, some musical theatre coming up. We have an animation festival coming up. There's an opera coming up. So it's really exciting times. So the plan is to really kind of let people know that this building is open and get the public to really come in and interact with all the exciting things that are going on there.
And so these activities that are coming up, do they have anything to do with what we're seeing more in the Nollywood space, where there are a lot of movies showing in the cinemas? And, some would say the National Theatre or the Wole Soyinka Center for Creative Arts should be taking up a lot of this market share to draw attention to the cultural icon. But we see that these partnerships with the Nollywood giants have done more with the private sector rather than the National Theatre.
Well, it's private sector led. The spaces are available for people to have their events, to come and use it. The building itself, I don't know if you've been there recently, but it's obviously expression of different creative, movements, with film, theatre spaces, exhibition spaces, a main ball for big music shows. So the idea is eventually we'll have an operator that will come in and obviously show films. But beyond that, we have, like I said, the main ball for big performances. And so this coming month, we have an opera, The Trial of Brother Jero. It's a Wole Soyinka production by Vesture Orchestra, which is really exciting. And we have I Wish, I Wish, which is also a musical theatre. It's a family show. And then we have animation festival coming up. There are lots of different things coming up. So it's a space which is privately used, and also our role is really to program as well to make sure that all ages can interact and really enjoy the space. So in there are 3 cinemas. There's the banquet hall, there are 2 exhibition halls, there's a main ball. So there's really a lot of sort of expression. Obviously we have Calix coming up in November, which is obviously a big fair for creativity by Frex and Bank. So there's actually quite a bit. We're also doing a recreation of Tales by Moonlight as well. That's also coming up in later on in the year. And the play, Lola Shoneyi's play, The Secret Lives of Babasegi's Wives. That's also coming up later on in the year. So it's a lot. It's going to be a lot happening. We're just warming up because we just opened, and it's a big building. So just settling down to all of that. So yeah, it's very, very, very exciting time for Nigerian creative industry, and also just the public, because that building was also built for, obviously, for culture, for expression, creative expression. So lots to see. Watch the space. There's lots going to be going on in there.
It sounds very exciting.
Very exciting.
It's very exciting.
Very exciting. Because the last time I saw a play was a Terra Culture.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we now have a lot more to see in places like the National Theatre. So let's talk about patronage in terms of the people that want to use it. I know you've lined up all of these programs. Patronage is important as well. How affordable is it for people that want to use the facility? I don't know whether you're free to say the amount here. And of course, the attendance, people being able to pay for the culture of seeing live theatre. How much of that have you noticed? Is there a scale? Are we scaling as much as we should? Or the streaming platforms and all of this social media has actually distracted us from going to see, you know what it means to sit down and just watch people perform. It's inexplicable.
It's very powerful just to see a live performance.
I love it.
And I think when we think about what we're doing and the children coming in and seeing it and just being, when nowadays everything is screen time. They're just on their phones. The concentration is low. But when you see something that grips you and holds you for like an hour and 20 minutes, we had a smaller showing of the performance actually at Terra Culture. Before the theatre opened up, and the responses we got from children who hadn't been to theatre for so many years, there was so much excitement, there was so much passion that we have to keep this going. And it actually started off from our summer camp that we did last year with the children. They were there every day from 9 till 3, and this production started from there. Obviously now it's a world-class show. We have a lot of professional dancers coming in. It's going to be big. So it's really important that parents understand that you have to educate the children also through theatre, because there's so many messages that come through as well. And when you do the preparation for the theatre, the discipline to learn your lines, collaboration, being motivated to get up every day, show up, teamwork, people are relying on you to do your scripts. So there are a lot of skills from actually when you're learning. And just going back to your original question about using the space, while it is private sector led now, and it is quite an expensive building to run because obviously it's a 50-year-old building. It was purpose built, so all the facilities are actually there, but it is we have to balance it to make sure that we keep it sustainable for the next 50, 100 years. So I think that's why the public-private partnership is really good. You have the private sector in there to make sure that facilities being well maintained, we have it sustainable, and then we have the public sector to make sure that all the programming, all the things we want to do for the public are actually being done as well. So we're trying to balance it out. Like we have an animation festival coming up that's free for children through the ministry, through private sector partnerships. A lot of sponsorships are needed to really ensure that we can actually do this programming. So we do rely a lot on the private sector to support the work in the creative space of National Theatre.
So I was looking through your bio, and I see the rich experience you've had in investment banking, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, BNP Paribas, graduate of Parsons School of Design. The point I'm trying to make is you have a lot of experience. Now, having this in your hands, a lot of people will want you to transform this and churn out a lot of money. It's as simple as that. They want to see how well you're able to take on this big structure, the big system, and give us money. I know you know what I mean, right? And I was looking at Broadway tickets, for example. You see just how expensive they are. I mean, if you convert them to Naira, at some point you get for maybe $130, even more or less, depending on the week you go. So I want you to first tell us, what's the average ticket price?
Okay,
for the National Theatre. So we'll see how far we are and how we need to get there.
Okay, well, it depends. This particular show, the ticket price is about 25,000 Naira. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yes. And then we have other events that it's free. So that's about 25,000 Naira, because obviously it is a big production. You have 100 people in the cast. They're rehearsing for months in advance. You are now having to pay for the space because it has to be sustainable. Yeah. And so, yes, and we want schools to come, children to come. We do promos. We're doing an early bird promo right now. Right. So jump on that.
So it's really like subsidized in that sense, would you say? Because for that kind of structure, because I've seen rehearsals, I've seen the kind of people, you see a lot of them actually go outside the country, perform, and you see how much they pay for tickets. Yeah. So how can we scale up really fast and have, at that, maybe not at the level of Broadway, but at least something that Africa can say, if you want the very best, go to Nigeria?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of work was done, capacity building last year. Whilst National Theatre was not opened for use, we we feel very passionately the Ministry of Arts and Culture, capacity building is really one of our key pillars. So a lot of work was training those in the industry already. A lot of work has been done in other creative sectors, but I think performing arts is something that's been a bit underfunded over the years. So we really need to get our performers to a certain level so they can really, do work that matches up to the world's sake. And we have so many stories to tell. That's a wonderful thing. We have so much amazing literature that we want to take on stage. There's so many stories from us. And I think the idea for us is eventually these things come to national theatre. That's the standard. They should go out into the international circuit. And so how do you do that? You have to have access to markets. One, you have to train to that level. We have so many Nigerians who are diasporans who are doing amazing work in that field. A lot of them are coming back. When we first started National Theatre, the first, I think, summer, people came, they trained for free. They were excited, they were passionate. This is something that people want. They wanted to succeed, they want to be part of it. So there's a lot of excitement there. And I think that a lot of work has been done. I mean, we look at Bolanle at Terra Culture. She's done a lot of work in the past. But I think National Theatre can really elevate those who are already in the space by doing the training, by having access to markets. Obviously, it's people, when you think national, you think global as well. Then all countries have national theatres. I mean, ours is Wale Soyinka Centre now, but they all have national theatres, and they're looking for content. People in the UK have reached out, looking at what's going on in Nigeria. They see the music, they see the fashion, and they're asking. We have London. It's a multi-billion industry, the West End. People, when you go to London, you must stop and see a show at some point. So we have a really unique opportunity to really elevate this industry. So we really want to call on those in the private sector to support the work that we're doing, because I think the minister, my minister, is really keen on just job creation and really adding value to the space and really giving Nigerians things that will really inspire them, children, elderly people, and interacting with the building. It's been so many years since people kind of came into the space. We have so many memories. I remember saying, I watched Ogunde play, I watched Shalimar, I was there for Festac, I saw this, I saw that. So we want people to really engage with the space and just have that feeling again. And it's beautiful. I mean, no expense was spared in the renovation. So we want you to come in, pick up a play, and the idea is that as we program, families can check, okay, what's happening in National Theatre this weekend?
So is there a website?
There is a website. There is a website.
What's the website?
nationaltheatre.gov.ng.
No, beyond website, you should have a social media
Yes,
handle.
there's social media. Yes.
The National Arts Theatre has a handle.
Speaking of training and vibrance, I recall there used to be Committee for Relevant Arts under the splendid trees of the National Theatre in those days.
Yes.
And there also used to be, talent hub, the Artist Village, where thespians came. I hope those things are still happening.
Absolutely.
At the National Theatre.
Yeah, we have a national troupe as well who will also do their. I mean, they celebrated World Dance Day just 2 days ago, and they had it, it was an outdoor performance. So we also use the outdoor space as well, because sometimes if you want to bring the community in, the cost of tickets and everything indoors can be...
All right. Yeah. So if you're a thespian, a soul in the theatre, just catch up with the activities there on their website. We must thank you very much. We've been talking with Mrs. Tola Akirili, the Managing Director of the National Theatre. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And what a weekend it's been. This is where we touched down. Thank you so much for being a part of the show all through the week. We'll be back again on Monday. Have yourselves a pleasant weekend. And of course, happy Workers' Day again. Happy Workers' Day. Go see a play at the National Theatre. Enjoy yourself this weekend. I'm Jeffrey Uzonobaba.
I should say I'm not advocating for higher ticket prices, just in case. But we need to create more value in that industry. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Have a great day ahead. Sunrise Daily Snack.